In the pre-show, Jamie. Pre-show.
We are special. Ooh, you can't even see us. It's like we're
no, you cannot see. I can see you. You can't see me.
No, I can only see my own self in this little box right here.
Yeah. I have full control over everything. I can see everything. I'm all knowing, which is probably a power that I probably shouldn't have to be able to control everything. But here we are. Welcome. The last Panini Pack player rankings that we are doing here. I don't know if you've heard, but it's a pretty big week next week in the National Football League. The draft's going on. We're pretty busy. We got a lot of stuff going on. So this will be the last one here from Jamie and I. Jamie, I have, and I shared this with you in the pre-show, but I'll share it with or in the pre-show. I'll share it now in the pre-show with everybody else. I have cards in front of me, and I put them together for today's show. I have no idea if we've talked about some of these players before. So,
you don't seem very prepared.
I put the cards together today. Like this morning, I woke up and I was like, "Oh, we're doing the live stream today. Let me put all this together." And then I convinced myself that maybe some of the players we had already discussed before. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Let me just retweet the show tweet, and we can.
Yeah, I should probably do that too.
Yeah, it should be good. Promote the show a little bit.
As we do this.
You know what? I just
You're right, Tim.
I enjoy that my brand is now just to this point. I'll put the comment up because I'm not, I don't run from it. Just the brand is now that anything I do on this show or on the Draft Dudes live stream is rigged in any capacity. I don't know how I've gotten that brand, but that's the brand now. So, all right, let's send this tweet here, and then we will.
Have you sent the tweet yet?
No, I do. I was too busy putting up the comment that the whole process is rigged. So. Can't type and talk at the same time. It's not a skill of mine.
You don't have that skill set.
No, and I don't have that skill set.
It's like this is like way more tame than like the Draft Dudes
pre-show
where I don't have a mighty swell to crack open. I don't have like Kyle, quoting movies or whatever.
Yeah, there's some different stuff that goes on the draft.
I know that's like the Wild Wild West over there.
It certainly is. That's certainly
there
one
you go.
way.
I see the tweet now. It just popped up. So
Thank you.
I'll retweet you, Chris. That'll be your second retweet of the week.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much
for all your followers. Not from me. That was your first from me. But
all right. On that note, let's get started here. Welcome in to the TDN Fantasy live stream. Chris Schubert, Jamie Eisner here with you. Continuing our Panini player fantasy rankings breakdown. I have the pack of cards here. But Jamie, you've been a busy guy today.
I have. And also, by the way, of course, it is right as we start the show. Everybody has something for me. I got slacks.
That's everybody's got to know the rules. 6 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Pacific.
Panini time.
It's a TDN Fantasy live stream that we got to do.
Rigged Panini Pack time.
No, it's not. It's
kind
not
of a shady character, like just like your lighting in your room kind of shows. Like that's kind of the character of your soul.
I'm very quickly here before we get into the full rankings. I moved into a new apartment a couple of weeks ago, and this is a new office. It's not the same office setup as I used to have. So normally I have my ring light right behind the camera here, shining at me. The ring light's over here, and it's not set up properly yet because I don't have the necessary power equipment yet. Still unboxing a lot of stuff. So the only light is behind this. It's like in the back of the wall.
Well, no, the only light is reflecting off of your computer screen and your glasses.
Yes, and then there's the light of the monitor that is directly in front of me. So, okay, if you're new here, your first time hanging out with us here on the TDN Fantasy live stream for these Panini card breakdowns, what I do, if you've joined us for the Draft Dudes live streams on Monday the last couple of weeks, I pull a card from a Panini pack. I show the guys, they do a 3-round mock to help that player on their team. Well, on this show, we skew it a little bit more towards, and actually all of them are offensive players. And Jamie tells us his way too early ranking for that player at their position. We have a conversation about it. We answer your questions. We have a good time. So over the next half hour, we're going to get through as many of these players that I have left here in front of me. And like I said at the top, some of these players we may have already done before. I'm not actually sure. So Jamie will be sure to make fun of me if that is the case. I'm very confident that we have not discussed this player, Jamie. This is the player that I will put up first. Quarterback for the New York Giants, Daniel Jones.
Well, there's a good reason why we haven't talked about him. Wasn't very good for fantasy purposes last year. It was interesting. He was the guy that got a lot of like weird preseason hype because of some of his. He was very much a boomer bust player 2 years ago when he kind of got to take over the starting role, and so he was kind of like one of those sneaky. There's always like those fantasy experts, and I'm one of them. That has like that one player that is probably not going to be good, but you can't quite talk yourself out of taking them, and you can't quite talk yourself out of their peak. And he was that for a lot of people. Wasn't very good last year. Well, you're going to get the addition of Kenny Golladay this year. Maybe they take a receiver at 11, maybe Devonta Smith, maybe Jalen Waddle, somebody like that. But to me, like I'm looking right now where I have him. Well, boy, where do I have him? That's pretty sad that I keep scrolling here.
This is why this was a good
27.
one. Oof.
I have a 27. I don't know if he's going to end up there right now, but
how many rookies do you have in front of him?
I have Lawrence, Wilson, and Lance right now ahead of him. Obviously, those will all change depending on where they have land.
That was why I was asking the question.
Last time I did that, when I did my last QB update, I was kind of assuming Lance was in San Francisco. Obviously, there's still a chance of that. Could be Jones, could be Fields, could be Lance. I really think all three of them are still in play, at least with the information we have publicly available to us. So we'll see where he lands there. There will be certain weeks where I think he'll be at least an intriguing bye week fill-in when 4 or 6 teams are on a bye. But in single quarterback leagues, not somebody that even I'm taking a flyer on. Like I don't even know if I take a flyer on him in best ball. Like I don't know. I'm just not in love with what I see from him. Just from a pure NFL football standpoint, and from fantasy, it's been very boomer bust with a lot more bust.
Well, and the other thing that I would add to that, Jamie, is this feels like the year that he's either going to reach that potential as a fantasy quarterback or it's not going to happen, right? Saquon Barkley,
real life too.
Right. Saquon Barkley coming back. They add Kenny Golladay. You mentioned the idea of potentially adding a receiver in the first round with the 11th overall pick in the draft. This is certainly setting up to be a Daniel Jones, no excuses, right? This is the year that you have to prove it in real life football. And I think that translates fully over to fantasy. He's either going to become a legitimate fantasy quarterback option this year, or else it's not going to happen because, Jamie, let me ask you this question. I don't really envision, let's say they do take a pass catching option at 11 to add to Saquon Barkley, to add to Kenny Golladay. Mm-hmm. I don't see how they can make their offense talent-wise better next season than it would be going into this season.
Not at the skill positions. I mean, their offensive line still needs some work and some tender love and care, and they might use the 11th pick on that. Like the Giants are in a really interesting spot there at 11. Like I could see if Slater falls there, or maybe Vera Tucker there, or maybe Kwity Paye or Jalen Phillips there, or I could see either one of those top 2 or top 3 receivers that obviously not Chase. I don't think he falls that far. Like, I think there are a handful of different players that could be really interesting picks for them in that spot, but there's a better chance than not right now, and the betting odds kind of align with that it will be an offensive player that they take, and whether they take an offensive lineman or a pass catcher, it'll help Daniel Jones either way. Will it help him enough for him to be a top 20 fantasy quarterback? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, and I can't envision a scenario where between now and the beginning of the season, Daniel Jones and this offense transforms even more than it already is to where you feel comfortable with him as a top 20 quarterback. Maybe by season's end, if he does live up to the potential that we're talking about, when the year's over, we look at him as a top 20 quarterback and we look at him in 2022 as a legitimate option. But again, when we're doing this conversation, Jamie, I like to think ahead here and think about you're going to update this all throughout the process of building your fantasy team and when drafts occur, late July, early August. I know some leagues are drafting even now, but when I look at this, Jamie, and I think ahead and I try to extrapolate out, I don't know how much could happen between now and let's say the middle of August when people are drafting that's going to move Daniel Jones up enough to where it's going to make an impact. His biggest movement, I think, happens during the season if he lives up to the potential that we're talking about here.
Yeah, look, there's not a ton of QB movement more often than not, just because we know who the starters are going in. We know what their situations are most likely. Rarely are they that one piece away from being a superstar.
Sure.
And a lot of times that one piece might just be seeing them be productive or be healthy, which we're not going to have any more answers, between weeks from now that we don't already have now. So there's usually not a ton of QB movement where it's a lot of the other positions start to get shaken up, whether it's by injuries, whether it's by players getting drafted at the same position as them. That can those can make things very interesting. But aside from a trade, like We're not going to talk about him because we've already pulled this card. So hopefully this is not one in your deck, Chris.
Okay.
You can't seem to remember.
All right, hold on. Let me look.
I can't seem to remember our shows, and I know this will be happy, but I'm not moving Jalen Hurts' ranking either right now.
He didn't make the package. That conversation.
He's going to be the starting quarterback for the Eagles because now
Nick Sirianni said it is an open competition, Jamie. Yeah. Okay. All right. How about this? We'll play rock, paper, scissors. If I win, I'm the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. If you win, Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Ready?
Okay. So, all right. So we have to do that. We have to do this now. Is it rock, paper, scissors, shoot, or rock, paper, scissors? Like, how do you do it? So you go on three. You go rock, paper, scissors.
Okay. So we're gonna go rock, paper, scissors, and then you present.
Reveal. Okay. Yes. This is thrilling. This audio and video.
We are and by the way, we are gonna mess this up. Like this, we have talked this out, and we are absolutely gonna buy it.
100%.
So one more time, just so everybody knows.
Rock, paper, scissors, and then reveal.
Right. We're gonna go
1, 2, 3, reveal.
2, 3, and then a reveal is how we're gonna play the game. Okay.
Got it.
All right.
I am ready.
All right. Ready? Rock, paper, scissors,
reveal.
Shoot. What is that?
That's paper. What do you think this would be?
Well, the camera card, it looked like it was just 2 fingers. I thought you maybe had put scissors out there.
Do you think? No, you lost.
You win. Okay, you win.
Jalen Hurts, top 10 fantasy quarterback.
I'm glad we were able to do that. No, you have him as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. You stand by your statement.
I just said top 10.
You said top 15.
Did I? I swear I said top 10 because he's
you said top 15, and that's why.
Okay, I'm sorry, top 10.
Top 10.
If I said 15, I want you to go run back the audio because I'm pretty sure I said top 10. But whatever. Yeah, I haven't moved him. Like he's top 8 technically.
Okay, we got more players to get through, so let's make sure we can get.
This is Jalen Hurts. I'm going to fight you.
No, it is Julio Jones, wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons.
This is, by the way, we have some very interesting draft takes coming in on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know what I want to do with
players that are like
takes.
7th and 12th at their positions.
And you know what? I don't know which one that applies to. I don't know which one is the 7th rated player at their position, which one's the 12th, based on the 2 players that are.
I'm intrigued by Raheem Boyd, but not enough to say he's the best running back in the draft. But back to fantasy here. Julio Jones is kind of a tough player to rank, just because when he's on the field, you know he's going to have a lot of success. The problem is that injury bug creeped back up last year.
Yep.
And maybe more frustrating was him trying to, for fantasy purposes, power through some of those injuries and going out there and essentially getting 2 or 3 targets. I was somebody that rostered Julio Jones in the TDN Fantasy podcast league that we did. And it was tough on a weekly basis because you would hear that he would be active, but you wouldn't know where to rank him. How much could you trust? Is he going to be out there for 40% of the snaps? Is he actually going to play?
Right. What's a realistic floor ceiling for him on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah. When he's 100%, he's a monster. We all know that. Yep. That's never been a question. But we kind of thought we were kind of getting over some of those injury bugs. And then last year, it cropped back up again. He's my wide receiver 12 right now. I can't put him outside the top, outside of wide receiver 1 territory. But he comes with some risk here. I have Calvin Ridley ranked ahead of him. They're both obviously a great option. But Brennan Eagles, this is a great thread right now in the YouTube chat. But I like Julio a lot. But to me, given the injury risk and given some of the, he's going to play, but not 100% factor to him, no, I'm going to put him right there at wide receiver 12. That's where I'd feel comfortable kind of putting him there. Go ahead, because I was going to give some players right around him. Like, for example, I've got Justin Jefferson 9, Mike Evans 10, Allen Robinson 11, Calvin Ridley 8. So that's kind of the range that I have him in.
The only thing I was going to add here is there's another element to this that I don't think you necessarily brought up, is that new head coach in town, offensive-minded head coach. We don't know what that's going to look like.
It should be a positive. I mean, Arthur Smith wants to attack the deep and intermediate parts of the middle of the field, and I think Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones can both do that incredibly successfully, especially if they actually have some semblance of a running game and play action off of it, which I know there's running debate about whether or not you actually have to have a successful running game to have successful play action. And I know that's an analytics conversation we don't need to get into right now. But either way, I think it's positive things. I'm not down on Julio Jones for any reason other than I'm just worried about the amount of games you're going to feel comfortable starting him in your lineup.
And I don't know, Jamie, they might take another pass catching option with pick number 4.
They could.
So that would also,
they don't trade back. I think they will.
So that could potentially impact things.
They'll take Surtain and get everybody confused.
Yeah,
I could see it. I think that if they keep that pick, Chris, it's one of 3 I guess it's 4 options for me. If they don't move out of the pick.
Okay, so I
would put a 98.751% probability.
That's oddly specific.
On it, on 4 options there. Kyle Pitts, Penei Sewell, Trey Lance, / Justin Fields, whoever doesn't go with 3, or I guess Patrick Surtain. Like, I cannot envision it being anybody else.
I mean, you did give them 4 options, technically 5 with both
I said
quarterbacks.
98.751% sure.
That is a lot of options here for them. All right, I got another wide receiver.
I'm more sure about them taking one of those 5 than I am about which exact quarterback the Niners are going to take one pick before him.
Fair enough. I got another wide receiver. I got another wide receiver for you.
Nuke.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah,
Cardinals.
This was somebody that I was really wrong on last year. I'll leave a lot of crow on that. Didn't have an issue with the talent. I just didn't think he would get this target volume. Like when he was in Houston, it was always, he was in that like 160 targets per season range.
Right, but you did not consider the lack of other weapons in the Arizona Cardinal offense. That appeared to be your mistake.
Sure that Kyler Murray was going to target him as much as Deshaun Watson did. Like it's a new offense, new team. And that is an elite sort of target volume. So it was tough for me to feel comfortable without seeing it somewhere else, projecting him to get that. And then, of course, he goes right in there and gets whatever. I think like 162 targets, something like that. Chris, you can fact check me. He's my wide receiver 4. I have him right behind Hill, Diggs, and Devante Adams. Obviously, is the wide receiver 1. Gotta love the production. They're going to throw the ball a ton. They're going to run a lot of multi-wide receiver sets. I still have some questions about their defense despite their offseason additions. I still have questions about their running game despite their offseason additions. They're going to have to be a team that throws the ball and relies on Kyler Murray's legs a lot. And if he's going to throw it to Nuke Hopkins 150, 160 times, you're going to get a top 5 fantasy wide receiver, no doubt.
Couple of things here. 160 targets for him last season in the Arizona offense. I know we're keeping the fantasy lens on here, but we're talking about the Arizona Cardinal wide receiver situation. I've seen some rumors today.
Throw this comment up. Because I want to talk about this for a second.
And this is what has gotten me here. I think it was a Matt Miller tweet that he has been hearing from a lot of people that the Cardinals are trying to trade up for a wide receiver. Now, he said, I don't know how much of that is smokescreen, but he's hearing it a lot. And Jamie, I read the tweet. And I just started shaking my head at the screen because that doesn't make any sense to me.
We talked about this, Chris. Remember, we talked about this on our TDN Fantasy Podcast Draft Show. I think wide receivers absolutely in play for Arizona. And honestly, at this point, I think if they don't go corner, they go wide receiver. So that'll be very interesting to me to see, does Devonta Smith fall? I don't think Waddle falls. They would have to trade up for him. I don't think Waddle falls out of the top dozen picks. But you know, if you're sitting there in your Arizona and Waddle's gone, Chase is gone, Pitts is gone, obviously, Surtain and JC Horn are gone, and you're sitting there at 16, but I don't know that I'm not taking Devonta Smith there if I'm them. But I understand the other issues that they have. But again,
they have plenty of other issues. But the problem I have with that, Jamie, is and I'm not saying there's anything,
all the time.
No. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what you're saying here. But I think by saying that, if Devonta Smith gets to them at 16, like that, you have to consider it. That's assuming that they have Smith rated highly, because if they only have Waddle, Chase, and Pitts rated highly, then the only way they're getting any of those 3 guys is by trading up. So the assumption here is like everyone's like, they'll get a wide receiver. Well, what if they don't like Rashad Bateman? What if they don't like Terrace Marshall?
I don't think I've heard some interesting things about Bateman. We'll get into another time. But
do you understand what I'm saying? Is that it has to fit with their board.
Sure. I mean, it always does. And by the way, they should value Waddle over Smith, quite frankly.
Agreed.
But the price to pay to get Waddle is you're probably giving up a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd or a day 2 pick here and a day 2.
Well, like they don't have a 3rd, by the way, in this.
That's right.
Draft.
So you have to trade it. So that's what I'm saying. Because now you're going to be either trading a future 2,
right? And this is a team
that's what I'm saying. So like
they don't have a lot of draft capital as it is.
I say, what they have 6 picks.
They have a 1st, a 2nd. They don't have a 3rd. They have a 4th. They have an extra 7th. I think it's like 5 or 6 picks.
So they don't have much capital there. So that's what you're giving up to move up, because you're going to have to move up at least 4 spots.
Who's the team they have to get in front of, right?
Philly.
If they want Devonta Smith. It's in front of Philly. Or if
you trade to the Giants.
They might have to be in front of the Giants. They might have to call Denver up.
Man, trading up to 9 for Waddle. Like, I love Waddle. I don't have an issue with Waddle if you were at 9. I have an issue with trading up to 9 for Waddle.
But Jamie, that's the point I'm trying to make, is if this is Waddle, Chase, or Pitts, there is no way they can stay at 16. But I think they trade up to get those guys.
Well, they might like Smith, and they have a little bit more versatility with their team. This team runs 4 wide more than anybody in the NFL last year.
It's true.
So these guys are going to be on the field. You don't really, you have Christian Kirk, who's going to be your true slot option now. You have AJ Green, who's whatever it is left.
Hold on, let me go check the mail to see if I got a letter from Larry to see if he's coming back yet, because I'm still waiting.
I don't care. Larry's coming back or not should have no bearing on this pick. I love Larry, but it's not there no more.
I'm just surprised it's taken this long for a decision.
I think it's okay if you sit at 6. I think he knows what the decision is at this point. Like, the team has moved on clearly with their roster moves.
Fair.
I mean, that's what it looks like right now. Like, I'm not saying that you can't come back, but the team itself looks like it's moved on with the roster moves. If you're sitting there at 16, I think you can, if you just stay where you are with the hopes that obviously Chase isn't falling, but Waddle or Smith or Horn or Surtain get to you, or maybe Vera Tucker. If you're sitting there with those 5 guys, again, I don't know Steve Keim's board. Only he could tell us this answer. I think you could sit at 16 and you have a decent, not guaranteed, but you have a decent shot at one of those guys.
What's the percentage? It was 98.75% that the Falcons were going to take any. What's the percentage for that?
I would say it is 63.21% that one of those
I'm going to hold you
falls
to that.
you.
I'm going to hold you to
Okay.
that.
I think, I don't know what you do otherwise.
Right. But
right. Receivers in play. Even if they take a receiver, I'm not going to bump Hawkins down outside of my top 5.
Okay, that was where I was going to
but I would be, it's basically going to eliminate anybody who's riding some sort of AJ Green redemption train or Christian Kirk sleeper hype. That will go way down. But everything else, not touching Nuke.
Got another quarterback here for you, Jamie.
It's a deep conversation. It's Tannehill. So I feel like I'm lower on Tannehill than I want to be right now, but I have to where I have him right now, he is my quarterback 13, which feels low to me. And it's lower than where I have him more often. I've been pounding the table for Ryan Tannehill since he took over
there's a
for
problem,
Mariota in week 7.
There's a problem.
Is it the fact that they have a new offensive coordinator and no pass catchers besides AJ Brown?
It is, but yes, it is exactly what you just said, is that they have a brand new offensive coordinator, and after AJ Brown, I don't know who's getting Josh Reynolds.
I like Josh Reynolds as a sleeper candidate, but if Josh Reynolds is your second best pass catching option going into the season, I have to, at least until I see him become more than what he's been, be a little concerned. I'm not convinced anymore as of the last 24 hours with some information that's been sprinkled to us that the Titans, from a few different places, actually, something Titan specific and something not Titan specific, that they're going to take a wide receiver at 22. Like, I'm no longer convinced of that. They could. But I was like, yeah, they're taking one there. And now I'm not so sure.
You're wavering. The percentage is no longer 100%.
Well, I was more like at a 60%, and now I feel like I'm at 20% that they take a wide receiver.
Wow, that's a big drop.
So we'll see what happens there. But then again, who are they going to bring in to be that complementary piece? Is it going to be Josh Reynolds? Do they spend a day 2 pick on it? They have a lot of defensive needs. They have a need at right tackle. They have cornerback needs out the wazoo.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't
how
think
how much capital can you invest? So then at that point, you go from, and AJ Brown is a freaking stud.
We talked about him on the show before.
You cannot ask for anything better than,
I think it was last week we talked about.
Yeah, you can't ask for much better for a wide receiver 1. No complaints there. But you go from having Corey Davis, you go from having, whether it was Adam Humphries at times, or at least a little bit of speed in Khalif Raymond, Jonnu Smith. Now, not all those guys are gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little concerned until they add some other option there for him. Can't quite put him in QB1 territory yet. Still somebody I think is worthy of being drafted. Still somebody that's going to be playing for you and as a mix or match. But I'm a little concerned.
I am running to the podium. There is a full-on sprint to the podium, and the card says Tevin Jenkins' name on it.
I take Tevin Jenkins. I think he'd be awesome at right tackle for that.
If he gets to the Titans at 22 and he's available, even in this scenario with Bateman on the board as well, running to the podium for Tevin Jenkins.
Isn't that what he did today?
You're asking me.
I had picked 22.
Yeah, I don't remember.
We ran through a full mock draft on the TDN Fantasy podcast, not fantasy wise. We just did 1 through 32.
What we would do. Yeah,
I had Tennessee, and I believe I did that. I believe I had that exact scenario, and I can't. You know what? You took Bateman in front of me, but even then, I still would have taken. I would have taken Tevin Jenkins there. I think he's just a monster. And if you want him to play right tackle instead of left tackle right away, you don't have to worry as much about him working through some of those warts in his game. I think he'd be an awesome piece there. Again, they miss Conklin.
The Tevin Jenkins floor ceiling of where he could go in the first round is a fascinating discussion, because I could make a case he could be a top 14 pick, or I could see him falling all the way to where we're talking about at 22, just with the way the board and the different permutations can play out. So certainly a fascinating conversation. Jamie, I got one more player for you. Okay. One more player for you. And you know what? This is the one I'm most concerned about that we've already talked about on the show. So I will go out with a big risk. I don't know if we talked about this guy yet.
Hopefully we can make fun of you for this one. We did.
We did talk about Adam.
We did.
Okay.
Do you have another card?
I do. I have a bunch of other cards.
Okay.
I have a dual 49er card, but it has Brandon Ayuk on it. That's the player.
That's good because forks up, by the way, for Brandon Ayuk. We are both Arizona State alums, so I will give him. It's nice to hit on a good receiver every now and then. Sorry, Nikhil. Boy, that was mean. I shouldn't have done that.
Frank Darby's available in the third round of the.
Yeah, I know what I said.
Okay, go ahead.
I know Frank Darby's your other gimmick aside from gimmicking up all these. You don't have like a fake Frank Darby card made up like you did for that Tua card.
The Tua card was not fake. I can't believe this slander continues about the Tua card. The Frank Darby thing, another thing that just took on a life of its own. Just one day, I just happened to be like, "Oh, Frank Darby's available,"
and full of gimmicks.
Full of gimmicks. Okay, so, Brandon Ayuk, where do you have him ranked?
I have him right now, and I'm pulling up some stats because I think people would be surprised to see where he finished last year. He's my wide receiver 24.
Okay,
and he's above Deebo Samuel for me.
So I was you have him as the top San Francisco wide receiver, and you have him as a back half wide receiver 2.
Yes, he's the last. He is, I guess, the line at wide receiver 2 for a 12-team league. I think you'd be really surprised that he was wide receiver 18 in average fantasy points for the season. But from week 7 on, he was the wide receiver 5 in average fantasy points per game. Now, I know Kittle missed a lot of time. I know Deebo Samuel missed a lot of time as well. But both those guys we'll see if they're back healthy for the full season. And honestly, I think Ayuk is the wide receiver 1 there now. Deebo Samuel's gonna get a lot of work. He gets a huge role in that Shanahan offense, a lot of horizontal stuff. He'll still be good too. I have where do I have Deebo Samuel? I have him ranked 32. So
this isn't that's not that far off.
Flex.
Right.
But I think Ayuk is the wide receiver 1 there. I'm anticipating better quarterback play.
That was exactly what I was going to say. Is we are assuming here that
and Mullins and Gimpy Garoppolo and all this other stuff. So I'm not a huge Mac Jones guy, but I don't think Mac Jones would be a downgrade from what they've gotten. So I don't think there's any scenario in this draft, unless they draft Felipe Franks with the number 3 pick.
No,
they're going to go in with a worse quarterback situation than they've dealt with really for a year and a half now. So I really like Brandon Ayuk a lot. I think he's going to be a stud this year, and I want to try to get him in as many leagues as possible.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the San Francisco receiving core, you have to understand they started the year pretty poorly, right? With all of the injuries and everything, and then they had inconsistent quarterback play just because they were just bouncing guys in and out of the position. That it certainly feels as if they're going to get a really nice clean slate here for this 17-game schedule. And to your point, Jamie, no matter what they do at number 3, I think we're all in agreement that probably feels like an upgrade over what they have right now, which should ultimately push the floor and ceiling for a Brandon Ayuk, even a Deebo Samuel, up a little bit from where we have them, at least right now. Give me some of the names right in front of Ayuk, of guys that maybe he could maybe find himself in front of.
So here's what 20 through 25 looks like. Since he's at 24, I've got Deontay Johnson. This is full PPR, by the way. Deontay Johnson at 20, Tyler Boyd 21, CeeDee Lamb 22, Cooper Kupp 23, Ayuk 24, and Tyler Lockett 25.
Can I share a little bit of a hot take with you?
Sure.
If Cincinnati goes pass catcher at 5, I think Tyler Boyd could slide down the board a little bit.
Yeah, if Jamar Chase goes there, sure, we're gonna have or Pitts. Although I think if they don't take Chase, they're taking Sewell. But if they take Chase, then I will slide Boyd down a bit because volume is a big part of why Boyd was so studly in fantasy.
And now that volume is going to go away because they're going to have a premier. If they're taking a pass catcher,
it goes away. It'll diminish.
But if you're taking a pass catcher at 5, I don't think that person is going to come in and be a role player. They're going to be a focal point of what you're doing. And when we talk about the volume with Boyd,
sure,
that volume is going to draw back.
It will go down. I'm not saying it's not going to go down and it'll drop him, but like same thing like the Thielen, Justin Jefferson type of a thing too.
Right.
But yes, he will not. Put it this way: he would if Chase goes to Cincinnati. Tyler Boyd will not be my highest ranked Bengals wide receiver. Although it'd be really fun.
So if hold on, say that again. If Jamar Chase goes to Cincinnati, Tyler Boyd will not be the highest Bengals wide receiver.
Correct. Because right now I've got I have Boyd at 21, I have Higgins at 27, and I got Chase at 35 pending a team. So I think all of those guys are going to sit right around the 30 mark, give or take.
So the only one could wonder that would mean Chase would be the top Bengal wide receiver.
I think I would do that. Yeah. And I would do that. And I would say that in the sense that somebody there is finishing inside probably the top 15, top 18. I was just going
to say that. Yeah.
But I'm just not sure who yet. So I have to kind of all clump them together there. But yeah, I think I would actually probably have Chase as the number 1 Cincy receiver if he goes there. Why not? The immense talent, the chemistry with the quarterback.
I certainly
they ain't winning many games. They're going to throw it a bunch. Why not?
Yeah, no, I certainly can't find a major flaw in your argument, and I certainly don't think I would disagree with that really at all. It makes a ton of sense. Now, if they don't go in that direction, then I think Boyd kind of probably stays where he's at on your rankings. He might move up a little bit, but it certainly feels that he's still going to be the top option there in Cincinnati.
I would drop him less if it's Pitts than if it's Chase. He drops either way, but I would drop him less if it's Pitts. Pitts is the pick at 5.
So more importantly, there's a chance for Brandon Ayuk to move up the wide receiver rankings before August rolls around, depending on injuries and maybe the way the draft plays out with some of these guys going to certain teams. Jamie, that's it. I'm out of cards. We're done. We're out of here.
We hit that. We had a nice little combination of fantasy draft, real draft.
Well, listen, it's hard.
8 days away.
In this time of the season, you and I are both in this mode. We're getting ready for everything that's going on next week. So it's hard to not blend the conversations together, right? Like I'm mixing up. We did a mock draft this week on the Draft Dudes podcast. We did a mock draft on TDN Fantasy. I've mixed those two mock drafts in my head. I forget who picked who in those drafts. Like that's just where my brain is at.
Cards.
Yeah, forget the cards.
You get to have any Dolphins or Panthers players. Yeah, I get it.
It's just, you get a little.
You're just very forgetful.
Yeah, I mean, it just happens. It's a very busy time here at the Draft Network. By the way, if you haven't seen the hype video for next week, go over to the Draft Network Twitter account.
Do it.
You're going to want to see that hype video. Jamie, final thoughts here on the live stream as we get out of here on a Wednesday.
Can't wait to put some actual teams and actual team fit analysis to these rookies. We talked a little bit about Jamar Chase. We talked a little bit about some guys that could be coming in for Tennessee, maybe. I'm really looking forward to, after all the speculation, all of the mock drafts, all of the they could fit here, they could fit here, they could fit there, us finally getting to put faces and names in schemes for certain teams. Cannot wait.
It's true. It is an excellent hype video, and it's one that you are going to want to see. And Jamie, I'll kind of tease here. The podcast schedule next week for TDN Fantasy going to look a little different. That's all I'll say. It's going to look a little different.
It'll be every day.
It will be every day. You are going to get content every day next week from a fantasy lens about what this is going to look like. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Special guest. Can't say who it is yet.
Yeah, very special guest. We are not at liberty to say at the moment. And Jamie, you so eloquently put it on the podcast today. Can you tell everybody, just maybe just a little bit of what to expect next week? You said it perfectly.
I did. I'm trying to remember what exactly I said, but it's something to the effect of, if you're awake,
yes,
the Draft Network will most likely have something live for you to watch.
There you go. That's the way you said it this morning when we recorded TDN
Monday
Fantasy
through Saturday.
Yes, and that is absolutely what you can expect next week. If you're awake, there's going to be some draft content for you. So stay tuned for that. Thanks to our friends at Panini for supplying, obviously, the cards for us to pull here on the show the last couple of weeks here. It's been a lot of fun. Like I said, lots to come in the following week. So stay tuned to all the social media accounts at TDN Fantasy on Twitter for the fantasy related stuff, for the draft related stuff at the Draft Network, and then the draftnetwork.com for all the fantasy. There's going to be fantasy content on the site. There's going to be draft content on the site. Big week ahead. So it should be a lot of fun. Thanks everybody for tuning in here on a Wednesday. We will talk to you real soon.